Hi everybody, this is Esther Tanes, back with the journey of an entrepreneur. We're running a little late, we have some technical issues, but we are back. And I am here with my special guest, Doug Brown. He is the CEO of Paradigm Associates. He works with all kinds of leaders trying to plan and do some projections and prepare their staff and make sure that everything that you have planned for your business gets where it needs to get. And that's our topic today, formula of success. Now, are you a manager or director of a nonprofit, a business owner, a pastor, anybody that's in charge of something, and you're having kind of a challenge getting there, and you don't understand what's missing. There's something missing. But today we're going to talk about the formula to success. Doug, tell me a little bit about you.
I started Paradigm back in June of '85, and since then we've now done work in more than 70 different industries, with everything from small mom and pop startups to literally some of the largest organizations in the world, such as the U.S. Army. We've now done work in more than 70 different industries, where quite candidly the only two common denominators are the fact that they're all people and the fact that their checks have cleared. And that's kind of the overview. I've been at this point, life before that, I came out of manufacturing management, and kind of what prompted the whole thing was back when I was at the University of Delaware. I was very, very active in student government and student affairs and so on, and ultimately received an undergraduate research grant to study leadership styles versus group behavior. And that's really where the seeds were sown to be in this particular business.
So again, today we're going to talk about the formula to success. What are the pieces that you need to make sure that that vision you have, that goal you're getting to, it actually gets done? You know, so many of us, when we start our business, we have all this excitement and all this passion and we want to get there, and then we hit life. And interruption happens, and you get detoured, and things just doesn't go the way you want it, and it didn't happen at a timely manner. Hi, Mary, thank you for joining us. And so we need to definitely have a plan, a formula, if you will, right? Yeah. So tell us some of the general things that they need in order to get there.
I'm going to suggest that if you happen to have something that you can take some notes on, and this, I can provide you a website later on that you can actually see this.
Absolutely.
But if you'll start over on the right hand side, I'd like you to write down the letters IR, and what that stands for is improved results. Everybody that works with us is really intrigued about getting some kind of improved results, and as far as we know, since we're all in a 24-hour life, we really talk about this. How do you get in both improved results, both on your organizational side, i.e. your business or your organizational side, but just as importantly, what kinds of things are you doing on your personal side as well?
Crucial.
Yep, absolutely. So everybody's really interested in how do we tie those things together? Because quite candidly, if somebody's business life or their organization life is really struggling, guess what? That slops over and affects their personal life. And if something's going on in their personal life, that slops over and affects what's happening during their organizational life as well. But so once we kind of have that, if you wanted to move a little bit to your left, the next piece, I would ask you to write the initials BC. And what that stands for is behavior change. Can we agree that if we want to get improved results, we have to have some kind of behavioral change, or we're just going to get the kind of the behaviors that we've gotten up into this point?
What's that saying about insanity?
Exactly. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah, no.
In fact, there's something that I'd love to be able to give credit where credit's due. I don't remember who said this first, but I've been talking to people for years. Are you familiar with the first rule of holes?
No.
First rule of holes is when you're in one, quit digging. We have to have
That's a good one.
we have to have a new way of solving the problem.
There you go.
So we have to have some kind of positive behavioral change in order for us to get different outcomes.
Okay.
Different results.
Kind
of moving to the left of that, can we agree that if we have goals, it'll make it easier for us to change our behavior in order to make to be able to get different outcomes.
Absolutely.
So we really work with people on several levels of goals. We work with them in terms of creating professional goals for themselves. We work with them to create personal goals so that they're kind of really driven by what's happening in their personal life and their professional life really are meshing. And the other piece that not a lot of people put a lot of thought on, but it's typically huge in an organization, is really the whole idea of process improvement goals. Because good people in bad process, basically bad process is going to win every time. So how do we make sure that we're not doing something silly like asking our people to roll bowling balls uphill all day long and wondering why they're so tired come 5 o'clock. So we have to be smart about those kinds of things as well.
You know, everyone, we are talking about leadership, and in your role, I think you hit some really good points, and talking about having not only the vision, but also the behaviors in place, right? So that you can see the better results.
Yep, that's kind of where I'm going next.
Perfect.
That in order to be able to achieve these goals, can we agree we certainly need to have the skills, which is kind of the how-to.
Yeah.
And we have to have the knowledge, which is kind of the where and the when to. But part of the thing that we recognize is it's not unusual at all to send people out for additional training in terms of skills and knowledge. Excuse me. But it doesn't always lead to an improvement in results. Well, this was kind of driving us crazy. So we kind of asked ourselves, well, what's missing? And we really kind of came up with two other major things here. One is, are we really using and tapping into, both for ourselves as well as for all our people, how good are we in terms of really tapping into everybody's talents, kind of those innate gifts? And I remember years ago, somebody shared with me, it's impossible for us to wear out our gifts. Because the more we use them, simply put, the better they become. So it's impossible for us to wear out our gifts. But the other piece is, if you almost imagine that talent plus skills plus knowledge, and if we put parentheses around those, kind of like back from it's not exactly a mathematical formula, but if you'll kind of think about it that way just for a second. On the outside of that we have the letter A, which stands for attitudes. Because I'm sure if your experience is anything like mine, we've known people in our lives that had pretty good natural talent or pretty good skills and knowledge. But if their attitude says they want to be doing anything on the planet except doing what they're doing, can we agree that they don't typically get very good results?
They're not productive, exactly.
And we've probably also known people that while they may not necessarily be the sharpest knife in the drawer, their attitudes were just so phenomenal, they outworked people and got it done.
I think that's my story, Doug. I think that, you know, I was a good student in school and all that good stuff, but I believe that in me, it's that desire to succeed, that desire to build something bigger than me, to create pathways for other young women or men that want to start a business and not have the right last name, not have the right race or even height, because I'm little. And so all these head trash we give ourselves, right? The why not. But I love I love the fact that you talked about getting at training and yet not getting the result. And let's go a little bit on that. It's almost about innate talent. You said something about innate talents that they already have, but you send them for training. Are we sending them to training in the wrong area?
I think when you think about it, there's two predominant kinds of training. There's basically technical training.
Okay.
I certainly would want to have a building built from an engineer that has a real live degree, as opposed to I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night and so I think I can build this building. So I think we do have to. I think there's some skills that we absolutely need. Right. The other piece of it is the whole interpersonal skills and people skills. Okay. And the good news about this is that those kinds of skill sets, as well as those kinds of attitudes, can be developed. But if it's one of those things, you talked about it in terms of that burning desire, that attitudinal piece, that is really a huge component that most people don't put anywhere near as much stock in. I mean, some things that have been kind of done over the years will show as much as 85% of why somebody is successful has to do with their attitude and not just their skills. And yet when you think about it, almost all the formal educational systems and so on that we have in place are almost all about on the Essence K side. They're all about the skills and they're all about the knowledge. But the real, kind of the booster rocket, if you will, that allows those skills and knowledge to be used on a consistent basis is really the attitudinal piece. And that's the thing that most people don't spend a lot of time talking about, and that's what's so critical to people's success.
Absolutely. I think for I'm going to use myself as an example. I don't want to use someone else, but sometimes I meet people that have all these degrees, like it's just abbreviations after abbreviation, all these letters right after their names, and they're very, very smart, but they lack desire. I have met people who have double degrees from both Harvard and Yale and don't work at all. Like, and I'm like, so what are you? Oh, I'm just trying to find something that really inspires me. And you either got it or you don't. You know, you either have oomph in your life or you don't have it at all.
Or you haven't discovered what that oomph is.
But that, Jesus, how long is it going to take? I mean, this woman was, well, not in her 40s. She was much older.
Well, there's a couple things, because one of the things that I actually get involved in doing is some assessments with people. And there's a couple of things that typically lead to people's success in that regard. Yeah, there's kind of the behavioral elements, which would kind of be consistent with what you and I have talked about. But you know what? There's one of the things that most people don't know is that we all have 7 values drivers: aesthetic, economic, political, individualistic, altruistic, regulatory, which kind of means how much is process and structure really important to us. And the last one is theoretical, which is kind of all about learning. But those things really color how we look at the world. So depending on what somebody's been exposed to, both on the personal side as well as the organizational side, they could find themselves in reality being in a situation where it is a total match for what's driving them. But the downside is I'm absolutely convinced that most people are not doing what they're really wired to do. And as a result of that, they're kind of going through the motions, they're kind of mailing it in, because for them, they really kind of see it as a job. And I don't mean I don't mean anything disparaging about a job, but they don't really see it as a career, and they don't really see it as fundamentally tied in with who they are as a human being. And therefore, they're always struggling because it's like, okay, yeah, I know I got to show up, and I know I got to get this, and and what I watch is that people basically will do the minimum to stay employed.
Oh, I can't do that.
As opposed to really kind of being on fire and really making it work. And that, quite candidly, is one of the big differences I see between somebody who's typically a successful entrepreneur versus somebody who's not. I even make a distinction between a business owner and an entrepreneur in terms of how the entrepreneur is really trying to really be fired up about really growing something and making something happen. Where to me, that's her.
I love life. I think life is fantastic. And listen, I've had the good, the bad, and the ugly. I accept it all. But to live life with purpose and do something bigger than you, and even as a mother of my boys, and now I'm only with my youngest son, and be interactive with him and planning ahead for him. And I don't know, I just cannot imagine just saying, oh, well, let's see what we're going to do today. No. But let's go back. So you talked about attitude.
Yep.
You talked about innate talents. You also talked about assessment. Does the assessment bring out those innate talents?
It does.
It does. And so we took attitude, talents, making sure that you assess your staff and your team to find out where are they so good at.
Correct.
What's naturally good. And then you talked about goals, having a clear goal.
Yep.
And then you said once you have a goal, you have to change
your behavior.
Your behavior.
You're using the goals. You're putting goals in place, and well-written goals will always have an element of behavioral change, because quite candidly, if they don't, you would already be in possession of what you're trying to achieve.
Correct.
So they always have to have an element of stretch And you are going to have to operate differently in order to be able to do that. So this is where the goals and the behavior change really end up linking.
And then after that, you get the results.
That's when you're looking for the results. And then the other piece that I would share with you while we're on camera here is we make a distinction in our business between goal setting and goal achieving. Because if your experience is anything like mine, far more people set goals and hit them. And so the whole idea of achieving goals means that it has to be something within the boundaries that you can do. Mm-hmm. You and I have something in common, that both of us are vertically challenged. And for the audience, I'm 5'9". Can we agree that if you and I met a year from now, I'm probably still going to be 5'9"? I'm not going to be 6'2". So we always want to set goals that we can achieve, and here's why. If you're constantly setting goals for yourself and constantly hitting them, can we agree you're going to feel successful? Mm-hmm. If you're constantly setting goals for yourself and not hitting them, even if you have his and hers Mercedes and a house on every continent, you're not going to feel successful. Why is that so critical for people in business? Because years ago, I remember somebody shared with me that order of magnitude, 80% of Americans do not believe they're as good as their next door neighbor. Now, even if that's only remotely true, mm-hmm. if everybody's kind of walking around with a giant loser on their forehead,
Aww.
right? What are those things that they won't even attempt to do because their self-talk is basically, what's the use? This is never going to work for me.
I hear that a lot. And I hear that from people who say, I'm interested in doing this, but what for? I don't have the skills. I don't have the tools. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. And the list goes on mm-hmm. and on and on. And some of us as leaders are waiting for the right time. Mm-hmm. There's no right time, my friend. No. You'll never find that right time because it will always be life is always running, the bills are always there, the responsibilities, the challenges, the family issues, the illnesses. Yep. There's always going to be something. You just got to go. And I think when I read a lot of stories, many people who've started a business are almost like they made that decision. And I talked about that in our first video. A leader needs to make a decision.
Correct.
To just do it.
And part of the thing that I end up coaching people on is if they have a formal process of goal setting, and quite candidly, most people's goal setting process is pretty weak, to be really blunt about it. But if they have a goal setting process where they understand kind of the why they really want this and what's going to happen if they get it and what's going to happen if they don't,
the why,
and if they really kind of thought through what are the potential rocks in the road from getting there, once they say to themselves, you know what, I've got enough why to get myself to really do this. And number two, that none of the obstacles that I've identified are insurmountable. If that's the case, then now it's a matter of putting in the plan and then, quite candidly, as you and I have talked about in the past, working the plan so that it'll actually work. Because if the goals are realistic and you have lots and lots of upside as well as the avoidance of the downside, mm-hmm. and if you've done a great job of identifying kind of potential challenges, but if you have a workaround for every one of those potential challenges, guess what? If you don't hit the goal, you got to kind of look in the mirror and say, the reason why we didn't hit the goal is because I didn't do what I said I was going to do, or right. in the course of an organization, we didn't do what we said we were going to do. And so in some cases, it becomes pretty simple. It's really kind of having that discipline, so to speak, of not skipping those steps to kind of do what kinds of things you need to do. Yeah, is there going to be some flexibility because life is going to happen? Yeah. But if you ever watched a butterfly fly, the butterfly is definite about where it wants to end up, but it's flexible about the way it's going to get there.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's always going to be wind drift and all this kind of stuff. So to speak, kind of keep your eye on the prize and allow that to help you get to that ultimate goal that you're trying to do.
Jim Collins says that the only thing that you cannot change are the core values and the end game of your organization, but be willing to make the shifts that be made in order to get there. Now, do you have to change processes? Do you have to upgrade computers? Do you have to rearrange your plans? Do you have, as long as you don't compromise the core values? So that flexibility has to exist, just like the butterfly who makes all those, adjustments, so
in real
thin,
time.
so fragile, and it's flying through to get to where it needs to get to. But let's go over the formula. Number one.
So starting and building it from right to left. I'm going to build it backwards.
Oh, okay, you're going backwards. Okay.
We're going to go from everybody's interested in improved results, moving to the left. In order to get those improved results, we need to have positive behavioral change.
Correct.
Moving to the left again, if we have goals, it's going to make it easier for us to change those behaviors to get those results.
Got it.
Moving to the left, we have the three initials of T, S, and K. The talents, the skills, and the knowledge. And then what I'd like to do is wrap those three initials. So you have those three initials plus the G for goals will lead to
better results.
The behavior change leading to results. And then outside of those two parentheses, I want you to put the capital A, which stands for attitude, so that the attitude really becomes a multiplier of your talent, skills, and knowledge. And then focus all that energy on the goals so that you're operating differently, so that you're getting different results.
So I'm going to do it the other way for those that have a hard time going the opposite way. I think he's dyslexic, just like me. He reads the other way. But for the average person, here, take a notebook and start from the top. Attitude. What is your attitude? And what is the attitude of your team? It is important that everybody's on the same page and excited. We talked about leadership. And in leadership, you have to get people, you have to be able to influence others. And how do you influence others without having a great attitude? You have to have a true belief of what you're going to do. From the attitude, you're going to have go three areas, and it's going to be talent, skills, and knowledge. I also said that a leader has the ability to impact and change their staff or their team to be better. So you find your talent, you give them the skills, and some of them may come with skills, and then you give them the knowledge so they can produce, right? A good leader can produce. And how are you going to produce without those three elements? Then from there you go to...
That's what you want to take that energy and say, what are the goals that we're really trying to do?
A great leader has definite goals, has a crystal clear picture of their vision. Where is it you want to take this organization? And this organization has its own organism away from you. It is not identified by you, but you might be the driver, but the organization has its own identity. So definitely the goals. And from the goals you go to behavioral.
That's what's going to drive the behavior change.
Behavior change. So you have this goal and you want to get there. You start creating this plan. Well, you have to have some behaviors in place to be able to get there. So that's the next element. And then you get...
Then this is the big payoff. This is the improved results that
then you
everybody's
get the results, my friend. So have you been struggling with some of the goals that you've had? Have you been struggling with getting your organization to where it needs to be? This is the formula. What is your attitude? Who is in your team? Do they have talent? Do they have skills? Do you give them knowledge? Are they knowledgeable? Some of them may come with all of that, and some of them you might have to mold them, right?
Correct.
And then what is that vision, right? And then what's your attitude? What's your behavior? So that you can get there. So you cannot get there without this formula. And I'm so excited, Doug, for you sharing this information with us. We're almost up on time. If you are interested in seeing this in writing, Doug is willing to share his PDF form, right?
Correct.
And you can also consult with him. He takes a lot of organizations from A to B in a very effective, efficient way. So Doug Brown from Paradigm Associates, do you want to give him your website?
Yep, it's www.paradigmassociates.us.
.us. There you go. So you can reach Doug directly. If you want to learn more, there's a lot more stuff that he can offer you. I bet that you have a formula of how to create a great goal.
I do, as a matter
There
of
you go. My name is Esther Tanes. I am so excited to be back. I'll see you next Thursday. We'll be with another guest speaker talking about, are you ready for the next step? So, Journey of an Entrepreneur, if you hit like, share it. Follow us on YouTube. This has been sponsored by Esther Inc. Insurance Agency, where your protection is our priority. See you next week. Have a fantastic day.
Bye-bye now.
Ciao.